Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. I got an interesting video for you today, and that is multi-touch events. And once we break down how it works, it's not that complicated. Let's go! Before we start, this channel have a Discord server where you can discuss and ask questions about the tutorials of this channel. Or maybe you just want to swing by and say hello. We will also use GitHub throughout this tutorial. There you can check the most recent code, but also code from previous episodes. That comes in handy when something works differently on your side compared to what you see in the episode. And for the people that want to go the extra mile to support the channel, there is a Buy Me a Coffee page and also a membership option on YouTube with some basic perks. With that being said, let's get back to the episode. Let's do a quick recap before we get started. We made custom buttons in this episode. First, we started out by finding some images for our buttons. On itch.io there was a collection of images that we can use, which fits us very well. Then by loading our new images in an enum like our other images, they were ready to be used. With a very simple custom button class that stored the position and status of the button, we could connect these two, the image with the button class. Then with some small changes to our touch events, we have now a working button. And oh, we also made a new class to hold all of our UI code for the playing class. Every time we can reduce the code in our playing class and move it, we will. Now, let's add multi-touch. To use multi-touch, we need to use three things in our event calls, so to speak. We need the action. Is it action down or action up, action moved, or anything else? Then we need something called actionIndex. That can be seen as a specific index on all the actions that is happening on the screen. You could have more than two fingers on the screen and each finger is creating an event. That will return an index for that action. And last, we need to use the pointerId. A pointer, it is what it's called. We have one finger, one pointer on the screen. Two fingers, two different pointers. With the actionIndex that we get, we can now keep track of each pointer. Each pointer will have a unique ID, and this ID stays with the pointer till it's no longer active, meaning that you release the finger off the screen. We will mostly care about the action, what is happening, and also the pointer ID, what pointer is causing that action. The action index is simply the way we get the pointer ID. So we're going to need three different local variables, the three ones I just mentioned. So we need a int action, which is event.getAction, the one we have here. But this getAction only works when you do single touch events. If you want to work with multi-touch, we're gonna ask for getAction masked. It is the same, but it allows us to work with multi-touch. So we get the action, then we need to get the action index, which is event.getActionIndex. Simple as that. And the last we need is the pointer ID. So int.pointerId is equal to event.getPointerId. And it's asking for the pointer index or action index. So we're gonna give it the action index. So now we have all the variables that we need. And we can actually make them all final because they're not going to change once we get in here. Then the next step is to handle the new action with action masks. So it will contain action down, but it can also contain something called motion action pointer down. There we go. Pointer down. So action down is when you're working with just one index or one pointer, like one single touch. But if you have more pointers on the screen, this is the one that we're going to have to work with. And we can exchange this event.getAction because we have already the action there. And for moved, we're not going to change anything. But for action up, we're going to ask or add pointer up. And now we can work with multi-touch for down and for up. And to see the different results, what action and pointer ID, etc., we're gonna just add some simple system.out and then print it out in the log. So we need a for action, so syso action close action. It's just going to print out a number, but it will be different depending on what we do. And we can just copy this for actionIndex, oops, and pointerId and one extra. So action, then we need actionIndex plus actionIndex pointerId to the pointerId, and then just one of these to make it easier to see in the log what is what. And we're going to take this and place it in the top of action down and action pointer down, as well as action up and action pointer up. And that is because for our move, we're going to do it a little bit different. So we're going to ignore move for now, but we're going to start checking what pointerId is doing down, up, etc. So to see this in action, we can run it normally, but I'm going to screen share with my phone because doing multi-touch on the emulator from Android Studio is very difficult. So we are going to look at my phone and I'm going to do the multi-touch on my physical phone, but you will see it just like the normal emulator. And here we are. So I can use this one, click, all right. And I click down. So we have action down, I click down. We have action 0, index 0, pointerId 0. I release, action 1, I guess that's up. Action index was 0, pointerId was the 0. So I'm gonna put down one finger on the screen on my physical phone. Action 0, pointerId 0. Now I'm gonna press down a second one. So we got action 5, which is pointer down maybe, I think. But I can add another finger. Now we got 3 fingers, 4, 5, etc. And I'm gonna release one random finger. That was pointerId 2. So the third finger, I'm gonna release the first one, I think. And so on. So we can keep track on what ID is doing what. So even if I move them around, as long as the finger pointer is on the screen, it keeps the same ID. So that's how we're gonna keep track on them. So yeah, ID stays with the pointer till it's no longer active, which is when you release it from the screen. Right now, we can keep track on what pointerId is doing what and where it is. But outside our touch events, we don't have any code that's gonna handle multi-touch events. So that should be the next step. And we should probably move this code right here, which is the code that we're checking if we are inside the joystick or not. So let's just add a simple public, not public, but private boolean check inside joystick. And we're going to need the position of the event, just like we do here. But what if we already pressed and moving around the player, and then all of a sudden we add another pointer to the screen? That one is outside the radius, so it's gonna say touchdown is false, or it's gonna interfere. So we need to keep track on which pointer is inside the joystick. As long as that pointerId or the pointer is still inside the joystick, we're gonna keep on moving just like before. Just so we don't get any confusion or interference from other pointers and what they're doing. So first we're going to need a position, and the best we can do is a point f event position. Position might be too general, but the event position, and then int pointerId. And this one is going to return false if it's not true, but we can take this code right here, I think, yeah. And we don't need a float x and y since we already have the event position. So we can just say event position.x, then event position.y, and we can copy this, x touch down, or touch, x touch and y touch. And if that's true, then return true. All right. We're gonna change this up because we're gonna check another button, the attack button, because you wanna move around with the joystick at the same time, be able to attack or do something else with another button. But for now, this is good enough. Then we just need to change this up a little bit. And instead of else, yeah, we can keep else there. Check inside joystick. And we need the event position that we got here. But let's because we can use it inside our down, moved, or we are using it, and also inside here, most likely. So let's just add a one up here. So final point F event position equals new point F and get X. We could use get X, but since we're dealing with multi-touch here, we need to use the int pointerIndex, or actionIndex as we call it. So we use actionIndex to get the position of that action, not some other action. And the same goes for get Y here, so actionIndex. So now we get the X and Y for this actionIndex. So we're keeping track on what index and action is doing exactly what, or where they are. Then we can remove that. And in here we say event position pointerId, which is the one we get from also the actionIndex. So actionIndex is mostly just to get the position or the ID of that action. And xTouch and xY, where do we actually use that? So if I just comment that out, where are we using it? Setting it for action move, xTouch. We could just say, well, that makes sense. So we can just remove xTouch actually. We're just setting it. We don't do anything with it. So we can remove it. All right. We can not yet remove it. I just do it like that. Remove it. All right. Looks like it's still going to work. All right, where were we? So we just used this one, and if we were inside joystick, we set it to true. Otherwise, we're checking for the menu button. So to keep track on what pointerId is inside the joystick, as soon as this one is true, then we can say, well, this pointerId is in the joystick. If that pointerId now moves, then we update the joystick. But if it's another pointerId, we're not going to update it. So let's go up here. Custom button, sure, we can add just for multi-touch. Multi-touch. We can keep a private int joystick pointer ID and set it to -1, because all our IDs is going to start on 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So by setting it to -1, we are hinting that it's not active and making sure that no IDs can ever be confused. Otherwise we would have 0 as default, so -1. And then we need to know if we are inside, but we can take the touchdown. We might rename it later, but we can use touchdown for now. And then in here, joystick pointerId equals pointerId. Then in here, if we're releasing the pointer, right now it's saying as soon as we release any pointer, we are resetting everything. But we need to make sure that the pointer we release is the pointer inside the joystick. So first off, if the pointerId that is being released in here is equal to joystick pointerId, then we reset it. So touchdown is false. Then we can say playing, set moving to false. And we also need to say joystick pointerId is equal to -1, the ID that we will never get. Else, because we might still have fingers on somewhere, something else might be active. So we just put that there for now. If we press the bottom menu is pushed, then we go to state menu. Actually, we're gonna have to reset joystick here as well, because we left joystick, so we don't want it to be active unless we come back. I'm gonna put that at the bottom. And we're gonna take all of that, but you know what? Let's just add a quick private void. Reset joystick. You can call it joystick button. That's good enough. And we're gonna take all of that and put it in there. If that's true, reset joystick button. If we go to menu, then yes, please reset joystick button as well. Let's see. Let's try this. Let's see if we haven't dealt with move. The the new X diff, the new position might be very different, but for up and down, let's give that a try. So let's give this a try and see what happens. Let's bring this one up. Make it a little bit bigger. That's good. Alright, so let's move around. And we can bring it up so I can see pointer action and the text there. So I can move around. It's lagging a little bit, but that's the emulator. I push down on another finger. pointerId 1. I release pointerId 1. But I can still move around like normal. Push down again, I get an ID of 1. I release pointerId 0, the first one. And nothing. That's great. It's working as we want. So yeah, it's working great. pointerId 1, ID finger. And if I now just release it, release 0. And the ID system for the pointers are just given. If there's no one active, the first finger down will get 0 and next one will get 1 and so on. So if I just push down a pointerId on the right side and my other finger now inside the joystick, I get pointerId 1. And because we're not handling the action move correctly, it's simply locking into the X and Y position of event.x, and I assume that's the first action index or the first pointer, which is 0. And that one is on the right side of my screen and not the one that's actually inside joystick. So we need to handle the move correctly as well. So let's do that. The way we handle action move in a multi-touch scenario is that we have to iterate through all active pointers and then update the position for each pointer depending on what we want them to do. And I can't really think of another move we need to care about in this game. We only care about a move event if it's on the joystick. Otherwise everything else is going to be down-up action. Clicking a button, clicking, I don't know, next on a speech bubble, whatever. I don't think we're going to care about the action move for anything else but the joystick. So first off the bat, we're going to move that down just a little bit to make it easier to see. And then we just say for int I equals 0, I is less than event.get pointer count. So we get all the amount of pointers that is currently active, then I++. And before we even get into this loop, let's just check if touchdown. If we're not touchdown, then why are we even in here? Meaning that if joystick is not active, then no point in being here. Then we can do a if event.get pointer ID I is equal to joystick pointer ID. If it's the same one, then we can update the move, which is what we do here. So we need the X, the Y, and of course the center, and then update it. All right. So we got the X from, you know what, we can actually copy that and place it there, but get XI and then get YI. So we're using the action index to get the actual position. And the next one is, of course, we're going to copy this one and move it in there. And then we can remove that. And now our action move should be working as it should. So let's give it a try. Let's run this. What didn't work last time is that my right finger pressed down, my left finger inside the joystick, and then I started moving around. But it seems like it's working just as intended. It's a bit laggy on the emulator, that's fine. But I'm gonna release my right finger. This is my left finger doing the circle, I'm releasing my right finger. And it's working the same. Putting down my right finger, it's working the same. Lifting my left finger, the joystick one, and you stopped. And I'm moving my right finger, doesn't work. Nothing happening. So yeah, that multi-touch is working. Perfect. What we need to do now is to add that second button here on the right side of the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we can, of course, do something with the button. But first we need the button. And I don't like this. Let's actually change it up a little bit. And we're gonna have a private final pointf joystick center position is equal to new pointf, and it's 250 800. Private final pointf attack button center position. So it's going to be identical to our joystick, but on the right side. New pointf. What can be good? 1920, so let's say 1700. And of course, same height, 800. And now we can remove all of that. Private final float, so we get rid of that little highlight. Circle paint. Do we use circle paint? Yes, we do use circle paint, but it wanna be final. So sure, let's make you final as well. So for drawing the circle, we joystick center position .x, joystick center position y, copy this one, attack button center position, attack button center position. All right. And we can take that, check inside joystick, joystick center position X, joystick Y. Wonderful. Any more errors? Yes, there is. Move, joystick center position X, joystick center position Y. All right, are we done? Perfect. Let's see if we can see it on the screen. And there it is. So it's 1700 here, but this is my screen, and my screen is 2400, I think. So it's going to look a little bit different than it might do on your phone. But we're basing our code on 1920 for now, at least. All right, so we could see it. How do we check if we are inside it and what pointer ID is inside it? And then we can do something if we're inside it. So let's start with that. And we can more or less copy paste this check inside joystick, but change it to check inside attack button. And instead of joystick center, it's attack button center position, inside radius, that's the same. And if we are inside here, we need to set a ID or do something if we are inside it. Or just return true. We can actually just return true, because we don't need to care about it if we don't care what pointer ID is inside it. As long as we are inside it, when we check it, we return true. And this is wrong, or this can be simplified. Return c less than or equal to radius. And we can remove that, because this one is the same as that one. Return c less than or equal to radius. If that is true, it returns true. If it's false, it returns false. So we just simplified a little bit. But as you can see here, we have two almost identical methods. We have an ABC, we take an event pulse in pointer ID. We might not need a pointer ID actually here. And yeah, we can minimize this or simplify it. So private boolean is inside radius. I think that's okay. What do we need? We need a event position, and we need a pointf circle, because we have two ones. We have the attack button and joystick one. And all we're going to do is to take this math. Let's copy that and place it in here. Circle, circle, float c, and copy that one. Return c is less than radius. So for this one, we can just say return is inside radius, event position, and of course, attack button center position. And for this one, if is inside radius, event position, joystick center position. We do something which is this one, else we just return false. So this is cleaner than what we had before. Now we just need to check if we are inside the button or not, or inside the attack button or not. So let's only care about the action down, action up, doesn't matter. As long as we press down on the attack button, we do something. What that is, we'll figure out a bit later. We just want to see if it actually registers. So if we're inside the joystick, else if we are inside, check inside attack button, event position. If we are syso for now, not that, but syso, inside attack button, and we can do a plus pointerId, and then we can remove that because we don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore. So let's let's go ahead and yeah, let's take a look if it works. And start. I move around and I press that button inside action button 1. All right, I'm letting go of my joystick. Now I press with the same finger, but attack button 1 is still, or index 1 is still inside. All right, let's try a third finger here. 2. All right, so it works. Let's what should we do? What should we do? We could spawn the skeletons. We can redo the skeletons actually. Let's add a quick method here. Public, no, let's make it private. Private void spawn skeleton. So we just spawn a skeleton every time we click on it. Currently we have all skeletons are in the, this is the playing UI, not playing. Alright, so in the playing class, render, update, no, but here, skeletons, let's just remove it. And in here, public void spawn skeleton. And we're gonna spawn the skeleton. So first skeletons array dot add new skeleton, the position. Let's just put it on the player. So player dot get hitbox dot x. Player, no, not x. Top. I keep forgetting that. Top. No, it's not top. My bad. Top is y. So left. Player dot get hitbox dot top. That's y. And that's all we need for the skeletons, right? What else do we need? Skeleton. Oh, my bad. New point F is how we add a skeleton. So yeah, that looks good. Skeleton array, a new skeleton, but the position is based on a point F. Okay, that looks better. But in episode 3, when we add to an array and render or update it at the same time, we get errors. And we can try this and just see what type of errors we get, but we're gonna get a concurrent error or whatever they are called. So let's just run this. And I can start here. So I'm just gonna add, oh, maybe I need to call it. Might actually help. So playing.spawn skeleton. All right, let's redo this. I'm just gonna spawn skeletons if it works. It's not working because I'm not calling it in the class here. We're just saying that. So, all right, third time. Start. I can move around. That's one skeleton and position is off. Oh, that's right. Level or camera X, Y. But let's try this. Keep adding till we get some error. Should probably get an error any second. There we go. Let's see what that is. Concurrent modification error. Simple words. as we are iterating the array list, we are adding to the array list, which causes errors. So the simplest way to solve that is to use the synchronized. And we did that in episode 3. So synchronized skeletons. Let's grab that. No. And you can't use simply just one line. You have to use brackets around it. So let's copy that now again. For rendering, we need to do the same. That. For render, draw skeleton. Yes. And like so. Alright, now we will not get the same type of error. Let's bring this one up. I could probably add tons of skeletons here before it starts to... I mean, we got an error at this time last time. And I keep adding more, so the array is getting bigger and bigger. So the chances of a concurrent error is just higher and higher every time. Unless we use this synchronized, which we are. But the position isn't the greatest. So left minus camera X, not camera Y, but camera X. And then minus camera Y. So now it will spawn on the player wherever the player is. So starting, sounds right. Then I move down here, keep spawning on the player. Beautiful. Now let's try the multi-touch. If I can run around with the player at the same time spawn enemies. And that is best tested on the phone. So I'm running around and I can spawn skeletons. Yeah, that looks... I mean, it looks like it's working. Wherever I am, I spawn skeletons. I can move around, holding down my left thumb. Just keep adding and adding and adding. So yeah, this is looking real good. This is multi-touch. But our home button also needs to be able to handle multi-touch. Because if I press down on my left and then release with my right, it thinks that we are using the same finger. So we just need to make sure that the same pointerId presses down, that is releasing it. So that's something we need to do. First, let's go back to our playing UI, where we have the code here somewhere. Here. We're checking if it's inside the event, but we already have the position, and the position is all we actually need. So let's go down here and change it to a point F event position. Then just event position.x, or it's X and Y. And then this one needs the event position, of course. We are checking if it's inside. No, that's up. Here we are. We're still here. So we're checking if it's inside and we set it to true. But in here, set pushed and then an int pointerId. This pushed equals pushed. And also this dot pointerId equals pointerId. But we don't have it yet, so private int pointerId equals -1. Just like we did before. We also want to make sure that if this dot pushed is already true, then return. Because we might push it down with one ID and then try to push it down with another ID. We should just leave because it's already been pushed to true. And then we want is it pushed, but this in pushed needs to have an int pointerId. So it needs to check if this dot pointerId is not equal to pointerId, then we return false. Otherwise, we're going to return whatever pushed is. So they might return false anyways. But this is just to make sure that two different pointerIDs can't check if it's can get a true. And what else? We also need a way of resetting it. So if we release a finger, then we want to make sure that we might not be inside the button when we do it, but the same pointer that pushed it released, but it was not inside the button. So a public void unpush int pointerId. If this dot pointerId is not equal to pointerId return. Else we're gonna say pointerId equals -1, pushed equals false. Not that one, but this .pointerId, yeah, we might as well just make it look a little bit nicer. Alright, so we have set pushed, but we're checking if it's already pushed. Then we can't push it again. We also check if it's pushed with this pointerId. If the pointerId is not the same, then return false. Otherwise we return whatever pushed is. Then we might unpush it or release the finger. So we're making sure that the pointerId we release is the same as the one being pushed. If it's not, then we just return and not unpush it. Alright, let's tie this all together. So set pushed, pointerId. For pushed here, is it pushed? pointerId. Set pushed false, but we don't use that. We say unpush and the pointerId. So we might not be inside the button when we do it, but we still want to make sure that if we are, we unpush it. We got an error still. Where's that? It's here. Is pushed for the drawing. Asking for button is pushed, but we can't just give it any ID, so let's add a simple getter here. Public int get pointerId. Alright. Button menu get pointerId. Alright, so it will be the same pointerId. Alright, let's give this a try and see what happens. And we got an error in our menu as well, but menu is not going to use any of this. You know what? Let's just keep the old one. It's not ideal, but we might be able to do that. Just set true. So pushed. Doink, doink, like so. Alright, menu is now happy. Let's give this a try again. Alright, so let's see if I can move around, but I can also click with my other finger right there. That still works. Let's see if I can go moving it away, releasing it. I did not move, go to the menu, pushing it down, releasing my left finger. I did not go to home. I go back to joystick, but I release the home button now. Yeah, that seems to work. So yeah, we now have multi-touch in our game. Alright, that was not too complicated. Once we understand how to use the three components, action, actionIndex, and pointerId, we can make our game handle multi-touch. I hope that you learned something today, and if you did, please hit that subscribe and like button. It helps out the channel. Until the next episode, take care now and have a wonderful day. Bye.